The Disaster Artist is directed by and starring James Franco as Tommy Wiseau, and in case any of you don't know already, the film is based around the true story of the making of The Room, the film that is widely regarded as one of the worst films, if not the worst film ever made. And this movie is about the making of that film, and the relationship between Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero, who were the two actors in the movie and their best friends that came together to actually make this film. And going into this, I was very much looking forward to seeing it, because I've never actually seen The Room in its entirety, but I've seen enough. I know all the famous bits in the movie, and I have no real desire to actually sit down and watch the entire thing. But you never know, after seeing this movie, I kind of actually want to. I would have thought I'd say that I actually want to watch The Room, but after seeing this film and getting the insight into what actually happened behind the scenes, into the making of it all, and what was actually going on with these guys, I kind of actually want to watch the movie now. But anyway, I was really excited to see this movie because I'd seen the trailers, and the trailers were just gold. All the trailers they put out for this film, The Disaster Artist, were great. James Franco as Tommy Wiseau, and the cast he assembled, I just could not wait to see it, and it did not disappoint. Not only was this a thoroughly entertaining, really great film, but even though I knew it was going to be great, what I was not expecting was this to be one of the best films of the year great. And I think it was, and I can't believe I'm saying that. I knew it was going to be a good film, I knew I was going to enjoy it, but I didn't think I was going to enjoy it to the degree that I would call it one of my top 10 films of the year. But I really do think it was that good. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of comedies, and this isn't a straight up comedy because it's a comedy drama, it's a biographical film, it's a true story about the making of this movie, but it is a very funny film. It is very much a comedy, and I don't know if I've ever, at least in recent years, put a comedy in my top 10 of the year, because like I said, I'm not necessarily a big fan of comedies, but I think this is one of the best comedy films I've seen in years. One of the best things about this film is that it just put a smile on my face, and I was just smiling throughout. And it's rare you can say that of films nowadays. A lot of films nowadays are very serious, or very dark, or very depressing. They're going for a very specific tone. But with this, it just put a smile on my face, and I was smiling from beginning to end. It was just endearing, it was charming, it was heartfelt, and it was so incredibly funny. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of comedies. It takes a lot to actually get me to audibly laugh. This actually got me laughing and kept me laughing and smiling throughout. That's how good it was. I'm a real kind of tough nut to please when it comes to comedy films and just comedy in general, but this film really did it for me. I was smiling, I was laughing throughout, as was everyone else in the cinema, and it was great. Now, in case any of you don't know, The Room is this famously bad film that was directed by and starring Tommy Wiseau, and James Franco actually directed this movie and is starring in it also as Tommy Wiseau, and he did an incredible job. He was really great. You 100% bought him as that character, because I was a little bit worried going in. It's going to be a little bit of a parody, it's going to be a little bit of a comedy act, a little bit just too much of somebody doing an impression and impersonation of Tommy Wiseau. But no, you genuinely believed he was that real guy. He did a great job. Obviously he's got some prosthetics and kind of makeup on his face to make him look a little bit more like him, but as far as his performance goes, he was really great. I don't know if I can see him getting nominated to an award season. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I mean, I would love for that to happen. I would love for this movie to get nominated for a load of awards. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. It might do, just because people would love to see, a film about The Room with Tommy Wiseau making it to the Oscars. That would just be insanely awesome. But yeah, James Franco was really great. He did a really good job as Tommy. You 100% bought him as that guy. But also Dave Franco really impressed me in this film. And in many ways it's his movie. It's about Greg, really. He's the central character. And it's about him and his relationship with Tommy. And it's about kind of his story. It really revolves around him. And obviously Tommy's a leading character in the movie, but in many ways it is Greg's film. And Dave Franco really impressed me in this film, because I've never really been that big a fan of his before, but he did a really great job in this movie. And even though I've never seen The Room in its entirety, I know enough about it to have a really good idea and getting all the inside jokes. And if you've seen the movie, and if you know anything about the movie, you're going to get all the little references and all the jokes, and see all the kind of little kind of Easter eggs and references in there. And it was really great. It was really kind of fascinating and enlightening and weirdly inspiring, seeing the kind of the behind the scenes of actually what went into making this movie in terms of, you know, the mindsets of these guys and the psychology of it all, and how they just really want to make it in the business, but everyone's rejecting them, and they actually go, what the hell, let's just do it ourselves. And the fact that they actually did that, and they made the movie, and they were actually successful in the long term anyway, with it being this big cult hit and this big success, it's actually really inspiring to me as someone who's like an aspiring writer-director and really wants to kind of one day make it in the industry and actually make a movie. It was really inspiring watching this film about these guys who just really want this, and it's their dream, and they want it so bad that they just go, screw it, let's just do it ourselves. And the fact that they actually did it and actually accomplished their dream and actually made a movie is actually really inspiring to watch. And even though it's this crazy story of what went on behind the scenes, and it's this, you know, ridiculously awful film that's made, it's still a really kind of inspiring and moving true story. If Tommy Wiseau can do it, then surely I can do it too. And that's another thing that was so great about this movie. It wasn't just funny, it was incredibly funny. One of the best comedy films I've seen in years, but it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just a comedy show. There's obviously loads of very funny, silly, crazy, hilarious moments that went on behind the scenes of making this movie, obviously, and it was very funny. And the performance, obviously, from James Franco as Tommy Wiseau was really great. But there was moments where it was actually quite kind of heartfelt and touching and, you know, sincere and dramatic as well, especially when Tommy doesn't get the reaction that he wanted from his movie, because we all know that the movie kind of became a hit in a cult way, and that it was so bad it was good, and people just loved it because of how bad it was. But that wasn't Tommy's intention. He didn't intend for it to be a comedy, so it's almost quite heartbreaking when you seeing the reaction from the crowd to the movie when it premieres. It is very funny, and then every time they cut back to James Franco as Tommy, we kind of really feel bad for him, and we're like, oh my god, that must suck. People are kind of laughing their asses off, and you actually kind of feel bad for Tommy. But obviously it didn't work out in the long run with it becoming some big cult hit and this big success, you know, with all these midnight screenings and that, you know, the famous reputation it's received over the years. But especially in that moment when you're seeing how it was first received, it must have been really heartbreaking for the guy, because even though it was received positively in a way and that people were loving it and really enjoying it and having a great time, he didn't necessarily intend it to be a comedy. So it was kind of quite heartbreaking watching this guy, seeing the reaction from the crowd of these people who were just laughing at him essentially, and that he didn't intend that to be the reaction. But anyway, this movie was so great. It really surprised me in that I thought it was going to be good, but I didn't think it was going to be as good that I would think about putting it in my top 10 of the year. But I really do think it's one of the best ones I've seen so far this year. One of the best comedies I've seen in years. Really great performances there from especially James Franco and Dave Franco also. Incredibly funny film that was also very charming and endearing and touching and heartfelt and surprisingly inspirational as well. I really love this movie. It did so much for me that I wasn't expecting, and I'm going to give The Disaster Artist a very well deserved 5 stars. I definitely recommend going out and seeing this movie, even if you haven't seen The Room, even if you know nothing about it. I think it's still a really great standalone film in its own right, and it might actually make you want to, you know, look up the people and the story afterwards, because it really is that much of an enlightening and inspiring true story that you really want to know more about it, more about these guys and more about this story and what actually happened. It provided great insight on the kind of true story behind the making of this movie. So incredibly funny. You can also tell it's been made by a guy who had not only a great love but a great respect for the real people and the real story behind it. You could really feel that love and that passion coming through. It wasn't just, you know, taking the mick out of it or anything. It was very funny, but you could tell there was a great respect there for the people and for the story. And you could tell that he not only had a great love, but he also really wanted to tell this story in a respectful way, and that really came through. I definitely recommend this movie. I absolutely loved it. I had a really great time. I can't wait to see it again. So there we have it. That wraps up my review of The Disaster Artist. Have you seen the film yet? And if so, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this and you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to see more. And if you missed my last review, be sure to go and click over here to catch up on my last review, or perhaps down here to catch up on one of my recent videos. But with that said, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.